Welcome back to Motivate Lounge. Imagine settling into a comfy chair with like a latte in hand and ready for a deep dive into something super important.
Okay.
Teaching kids and teenagers how to build unshakable confidence, not just the fleeting kind, but the kind that lasts a lifetime.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up in like those quick fixes and surface level advice,
Right.
but real confidence runs so much deeper than that.
Exactly. Today we're going beyond those surface level tips. We're exploring the fascinating link between body positivity and mental health and how we can really lay the groundwork for lasting self-assurance in young people.
Yeah, it's about understanding the psychology behind confidence, not just slapping on a band-aid.
Ooh, I love that analogy. Okay, so let's start with the body positivity movement. I think a lot of people have heard the term, but might not fully grasp its origins and core principles.
You're right, it's often oversimplified. The movement actually has roots going back to like the 1960s, emerging from the fat acceptance movement,
Uh-huh.
but it's evolved significantly since then.
It's definitely not just about size anymore.
No, it's about accepting all bodies, regardless of shape, color, ability, every single thing that makes each person unique.
You know, when you think about it, the concept of ideal beauty has been such a moving target throughout history. What was considered beautiful in one era might be seen as completely different in another.
That's a really interesting point. During the Renaissance, for example, fuller figures were actually celebrated as symbols of health and wealth. Think of those iconic paintings by Titian and Rubens.
It's such a stark contrast to the incredibly thin ideal that was promoted in the 1990s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
The heroin chic look, as it was called, really exemplifies how drastically those beauty standards can shift.
And how powerfully those shifts can impact people, especially young people who are still developing their sense of self.
It makes you wonder what role media, and more recently social media, plays in all of this.
I think it's impossible to ignore the impact. We're constantly bombarded with images that have been carefully curated, filtered, and often even digitally altered. It creates this unrealistic and unattainable standard of beauty that can be incredibly damaging.
Especially for teenagers who are already navigating so many changes and pressures, I imagine that kind of constant comparison can be really tough on their mental health.
Absolutely. It can lead to feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and even depression.
Wow.
And that's where the psychological power of body positivity comes in.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. What does it mean to embrace body positivity from a psychological perspective?
It's about shifting the focus from physical appearance to cultivating a positive relationship with yourself. It's about recognizing that self-worth comes from within and isn't dictated by external factors like how your body looks.
So it's about fostering a sense of self-love and acceptance that goes beyond just surface-level appearances.
Exactly. It's about recognizing your strengths, appreciating what your body can do, and being kind to yourself even when you're struggling.
It's like replacing that harsh inner critic with a more supportive and compassionate voice.
That's a great way to put it. And research shows that in making that shift can have a profound impact on a young person's mental well-being.
So there's actual scientific evidence to support the idea that body positivity can improve mental health. Tell me more about that.
There have been a number of studies that show a strong correlation between body positivity and improved self-esteem, reduced stress and anxiety, and even increased mindfulness. One study published in the Journal of Adolescent Health in 2020 found that teenagers who reported higher levels of body satisfaction also reported lower levels of depressive symptoms.
That's fascinating. It really highlights how interconnected our mental and physical well-being are.
And there's even research on special practices that can foster body positivity. For example, a 2023 study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that practicing gratitude for one's body, focusing on what it allows you to do rather than just how it looks, can contribute significantly to a more positive self-image.
So it's not just about thinking positive thoughts, but actually taking the time to appreciate and be thankful for your body. I love that. Okay. I think we've laid some really solid groundwork here, but I know our listeners are probably eager to get to the practical stuff. How can we, as parents, educators, or even just caring adults in a young person's life, actually help them cultivate this positive mindset? What are some tangible tips?
Well, one of the most impactful things we can do is limit exposure to negative media.
I think we all have a sense that the constant barrage of perfect images on social media and in advertising can't be good for anyone.
Right.
But how do we actually put that into practice? What does that look like in a real world setting?
It starts with having conversations. Talk to young people about how those images are often heavily edited and filtered. Help them understand that what they're seeing is rarely real or attainable.
It's about helping them develop a critical eye. right? To see through those manufactured images and recognize that they don't tell the whole story.
Precisely. We can also encourage them to be more mindful of who they follow on social media. Are they following accounts that make them feel good about themselves, or are they following accounts that leave them feeling inadequate?
It's about curating a social media feed that's more like a support system than a source of stress. And it's not just about limiting the negative, right? It's also about surrounding them with positive influences.
You're absolutely right. This can be both online and offline. Seek out people who celebrate diversity, who emphasize inner qualities over outer appearance, and who encourage self-expression.
Building a support network of people who lift you up and make you feel good about being you.
Exactly. And as we were talking about earlier, there's so much power in encouraging kids and teens to engage in physical activities that make them feel good.
This goes beyond just exercising to change your appearance, right?
Right. It's about finding the joy in movement. Dancing, hiking, swimming, playing sports, anything that helps them connect with their bodies in a positive way.
So it's not about punishing yourself at the gym, but finding activities that make you feel strong, capable, and energized. I love that. But it's important to acknowledge that even with all the best intentions and support systems in place, the journey toward body positivity isn't always easy, right?
You're right, there will be bumps in the road. It takes a conscious effort to unlearn those deeply ingrained beauty standards that we've been absorbing from such a young age.
Those messages are everywhere and they can be so subtle.
And let's be honest, even when you're making progress, there's always a chance of encountering negativity from the outside world.
Yeah.
Judgmental comments, unrealistic expectations, people who just don't get it. It can be tough.
It can be really discouraging, especially for a young person who's still trying to figure things out. So how do we help them navigate those inevitable negative experiences?
Resilience is key. We need to equip young people with the tools to handle criticism, to change those negative voices, and to stay true to themselves even when it's hard. And I think this is where our listeners can really make a difference.
Yes. Let's bring this back to our listeners. Think about the young people in your life, your children, your students, your nieces and nephews, even just the kids in your neighborhood. How can you be a source of support? What positive messages can you reinforce?
That's such a great question for everyone to reflect on. Even small shifts in our language and behavior can have a big impact.
It's about being that person who helps them see their own worth and beauty, even when they might be struggling to see it themselves.
And you know, if we connect this to the bigger picture, fostering a healthy body image in children and teenagers could actually be a key factor in equipping them to navigate the challenges of the modern world with confidence.
That's a powerful idea. So we're not just talking about feeling good in a swimsuit. We're talking about building resilience, self-acceptance, and the ability to handle whatever life throws their way.
Exactly. When you're comfortable in your own skin, you're less likely to be swayed by those external pressures, more likely to embrace challenges, and better able to bounce back from setbacks.
Okay, I'm really intrigued by this connection between body positivity and these broader life skills. How does that actually play out?
Imagine this. You're constantly told you're not good enough, you're too this or not enough that. It's easy to internalize those messages and start doubting yourself.
That self-doubt can be paralyzing. It can hold you back from trying new things, from taking risks, from putting yourself out there.
Exactly. But when you cultivate a positive body image, you're essentially rewriting that script. You're replacing that harsh inner critic with a voice of self-compassion.
So it's not just about how you look, it's about how you feel about yourself. And that shift in mindset can be incredibly empowering.
Absolutely. And it can ripple outward, impacting all areas of your life.
It's like building a foundation of self-belief that can support you in everything you do.
And that's why we're not just focusing on the physical aspects of body positivity. We're talking about a holistic approach that encompasses mental, emotional, and social well-being.
It's about celebrating your individuality, respecting yourself and others, and recognizing that true beauty comes from within.
And those values can guide a young person's decisions, relationships, and overall outlook on life.
So in a way, body positivity is about so much more than just bodies. It's about fostering a sense of belonging, acceptance, and inner strength.
And those are essential for navigating the complexities of the modern world with confidence and resilience.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new understanding of body positivity. But if you could distill it down to a few key takeaways for our listeners, what would you say are the most important things to remember?
Well, I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways is that body positivity is not just like a fleeting trend or a hashtag.
Yeah.
It's a profound shift in mindset that can truly empower young people to live authentically and embrace their full potential.
I completely agree. It's about shifting the focus from seeking external validation to cultivating a deep sense of self-worth that comes from within.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think about The responsibility we all have as adults to be mindful of the messages we're sending to the young people in our lives.
Yeah.
It's not just about what we say, but also about how we behave and the attitudes we model.
You're so right. Our words and actions have a powerful impact whether we realize it or not. We have the opportunity to be those positive influences, those voices of encouragement and acceptance that can make such a difference.
It's about creating a space where young people feel safe to be themselves without judgment or pressure to conform to unrealistic standards.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to remember that this is like an ongoing journey, both for ourselves and for the young people we care about.
Sure.
There's always more to learn, more ways to grow, and more we can do to create a more body positive world.
I love that. It's not about reaching some perfect state of body positivity, but rather about continually striving to be more accepting, more compassionate, and more supportive.
And there are so many amazing resources out there to help us along the way, books, articles, podcasts, organizations doing incredible work.
Right.
It's really inspiring to see how much this movement is growing and evolving.
It seems like we're at a turning point where we're finally starting to challenge those deeply ingrained societal norms and create a more inclusive and empowering culture.
I think you're right. And it starts with each one of us. Even small changes in our own attitudes and behaviors can have a ripple effect.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. You have the power to make a difference. You can be that source of support, that voice of encouragement, that champion for body positivity in a young person's life.
And remember, it's about progress, not perfection.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for joining me today for this incredibly insightful conversation. It's been a real pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you for having me.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us here at Motivate Lounge. We hope you're leaving feeling inspired and empowered to cultivate more body positivity in your own lives and in the lives of those around you. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep those positive vibes flowing.
That's a wrap for today's Motivate Lounge coffee shop chat, where inspiration meets action. Keep chasing your goals and stay motivated. If you enjoyed this episode, like, subscribe, and share Motivate Lounge on YouTube.